Ladies and gentlemen, 6G journey is on. 6G journey is on from vision to reality, but it's also on from vision to value. Value is obviously what we are after. And I'm really delighted to have you all here. Hearty welcome to this special topic session, 6G from vision to value. And I'm truly excited for a number of reasons. Ultimately, as said, value hopefully is at the heart of our joint ambitions, and we'll discuss more as to what we mean by this and where we stand. But let me first and foremost invite distinguished panelists up to the stage. And first, Marja Matinmikko-Blue from University of Oulu, a well-known leader in the space of value creation 6G. Welcome, Marja. Hand of applause for Marja. We have next to go Hanne-Stinne from Telenor, operator perspective, strong background in research and innovation, of course. Welcome, Hanne. Hand of applause for Hanne. So now we have academia, operator. Do we need anybody else? Maybe industry, yeah. Andreas Müller from Bosch. Hand of applause for Andreas. And then from around the corner, even though you have come a long way, thanks for coming, Toon. You've come all the way from Korea, as I understand. So Toon Norp from TNO. And last but not least, we have another gentleman from the Far East, at least by company affiliation, Egon Schulz from Huawei. Welcome, Egon. Hand of applause.
Thank you.
So the way we propose to structure the session is that each of us, the panelists, myself, we will have a couple of minutes just flashing some short ideas, one slide, one, maybe two, but just one would be ideal. And then to actively engage in debate and discussion amongst the panelists, but of course also inviting all of you to actively engage and ask constructively provocative questions. So with this, let's dive right into my opening thoughts. I take the liberty to kick this off. If we can have the first slide set, please. Yeah, so this is about vision to value, but I want to start with a key statement here, which is really about purpose. So next slide, actually that's the one slide I wanted to show. So purpose drives vision and value, vision to value. If we can have the next slide, please. Yeah, here we go. So purpose is what really, I guess, is at the very heart, the foundation of everything we do. And when you look at the context that we are in, I guess I myself, we at Nokia definitely, we felt probably this overarching purpose to drive the whole debate is about, yes, creating technology, 6G, but truly helping the world act together. So create technology that helps the world act together. That's I guess, like an overarching starting point for vision and value. And you could also say driving vision to value. And building on this then, maybe reflecting briefly, and I guess as we have gone through this very exciting series of events and sessions, panels, as well as workshops, the vision in the meantime is broadly shared, right? This opening keynote we had this morning from Peter, thank you, sir, excellent, was really cool. Why? Because he emphasized some specific aspects of time-space continuum when it comes to physical digital fusion. That's the one element of the 6G vision, definitely a very big one. And it ties into what we discussed yesterday in one of the special purpose sessions on digital twin. And then, of course, this element of human augmentation. So physical digital fusion, prominent theme, indeed, dynamic, network, connected representations. Network is at the heart of this all. But then, of course, it's all about human augmentation, expanding human possibility. And I think that's something that has motivated us and will continue to motivate us for a variety of applications and services domains, including health, maybe to mention this right up front. And this then leads you to probably a way of structured discussion around value, right? So value in 3 dimensions. What are these 3 key dimensions? Well, societal, of course, big time, environmental, but also economic. Why economic? Well, At the end of the day, we need to make some money out of what we do as well. It's about GDP growth. It's about making sure that we find ways to monetize. That, I guess, is important, as we currently see with 5G, where we struggle with some of the monetization opportunity at this time. Then the key theme here really is to move beyond KPI, key performance indicator, to key value indicators. And this has been a journey, I must say, going back to Paris 2020. I remember the event, it was iconic kickoff XX, and we said, with 6G, we want to do different. We still want to do KPIs. Yeah, throughput matters, latency, reliability, other attributes of performance, but now with 6G, we really want to focus on value, put that at the heart of what we do, and thereby making key value indicators criteria of design. And when you then do the analysis, we at Nokia Bell Labs said, well, there's probably 3 key drivers as we identify. And when you, again, look at what we have seen and witnessed here as part of this exciting conference, EuCNC, here in Antwerp at 6G Summit, clearly the topic of green by design stands out. It's an obvious one. It is about, sure enough, making sure we meet the expected growth in data and throughput, capacity matters, and doing this in a more efficient way. And the challenge, and this is a demanding target, is, of course, that the overall power consumption is also contained and reduced. And the ambition we would have is to even go for as high as like 50% lower power reduction. Do we fully know how to get there? No, not yet, but it's the right ambition. Security and privacy, very relevant indeed, especially coming back to merging of worlds, digital, physical. Why is it relevant? Well, obviously, once you do digital twins of humans in the health context, it's very obvious. Privacy, methods of encryption, anonymization is very important. And last but not least, probably I'd like to also highlight one last driver of value, namely digital inclusion. And digital inclusion, of course, comes in several flavors. So some of you would say, yeah, connect the unconnected, NTN, non-terrestrial, part of the 6G way forward, even day one priority now, which is great. But then keep in mind there's issues of accessibility, of including the elderly, the ones who are struggling with the smartphones today, the visually impaired. So there's a variety of flavors of digital inclusion that we feel are of value and definitely need to be part of the overall value paradigm as we try to totally move forward as part of the 6G journey, and all anchored in purpose. And with this, I would hand over to the next distinguished speaker, Marja. Please, over to you.
Thank you, Volker. Great to be here in this panel, and I followed Volker's instructions. One slide, and that's what I did. So my name is Marja Matinmikko-Blue. I'm research director at the University of Oulu, and I'm in the Finnish 6G flagship at the University of Oulu in the role of Director of Sustainability and Regulation. And this is the slide I wanted to show to you. You've probably seen it before, shown by me and some other people. And it's explaining the Finnish 6G flagship's research agenda, multidisciplinary research agenda that brings together technical, business and regulation perspectives. And the fourth dimension there is sustainability. And this figure, it depicts the white papers that we did as a collaborative effort already 4 years ago. So all those pictures are representing those 12 different white papers. And the topics that were addressed already 4 years ago, I think they still continue to be valid. So for me, this 6G research vision, it has 4 perspectives: business, regulation, technology, and sustainability. Sustainability, as you've heard here, has 3 perspectives: environmental, social, and economic perspective. And the vision building and the R&D is done in multi-stakeholder collaboration. Academics, industry, public sector, regulator. Each stakeholder has their own perspective and view on what 6G should be. Also, they have their own perspectives on the values, what is more important than other things. We as people, we have different roles in this development, as hopefully end users of this technology, but we as a developer community, we have a lot of responsibility to do here. Impact is one part, and the global, as you know, the global 6G development, it has to be done in a collaborative manner, even though there are very different perspectives, especially about the values. There are different perspectives, what is important to different stakeholders. I've been involved in that IMT 2030 process at the ITUR for 4 years now, and I've seen how different the perspectives are. Sustainability is now a key driver there, and it's there only because administrations wanted to include it there. There were stakeholders who did not want to include it there. So even there I saw it in the first hand in the room when these values were being discussed, and there were very different perspectives. What should be included globally in the 6G work and what should not be included. I conclude here, and I'm happy to take more questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Marja.
Yes, hello, I'm Hanne-Stinne Hallingby, and I work in Telenor, Research and Innovation, as a research scientist and also director for use case solutions. I also work for 6GIA as chair for the subgroup called Business Validation Models and Ecosystems. And I here introduce to you the double diamond, to tell a little bit more about myself and what I think is important. It turned out well that it was a double diamond here in Antwerp. But this is a well-known concept within design thinking, where you do look at the problem space first, you diverge, and then you converge, and then you look at the problem space. And what I want to say is that I'm an economist and social scientist, and my domain is more on the problem space. And I also work a lot with ecosystems. And here you see that we find ecosystems both on the problem space side and the solution space side. And I work with both aspects. And the point about the problem space is that you converge down to one problem, a use case problem that someone would like to solve. And that's where the value is created. And then you start to try to find out how to solve that. And if you can, together with the rest of the ecosystem, find out how to solve that and to scale, then you actually can solve that. And that's where the business models are created. Someone pays, that creates value for them, and it gets paid. So this we work with for 5G now for many years, and we will want to continue that into the 6G. But then with 6G, we add sustainability to it. And this is already a very complex the world is complex. There's a lot of things that has to come together. And when we add sustainability to it, we have to understand a lot more of the challenges that people on the problem side have, who they are, who are those who actually has the problem, who are those who want that to be solved, and also how can we solve that in a sustainable way. And this, of course, affects how the financial streams will flow in the future. So this is what I bring into the discussion today.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hanne. So up next, industry perspective, please.
Right, thanks Volker, and hello everybody. So my name is Andreas Müller. I'm with Bosch, as you can see. So we bring in the vertical perspective on 6G. And we are active in quite a number of different verticals, including automotive, industrial, and others as well. And I really appreciate the initiative to have this panel here, because it's really key that we think about the value of 6G from the very beginning. And of course, we are all in the scientific environment, right? We are all engineers, researchers, and so on. So what is the best approach to do this? Put it in a formula. And what are the basic formulas that we have to know about it? Anybody has any idea? Has anybody heard about the Maxwell equations? Not even any professor here? Okay, I've seen one hand at least, yeah. But forget about it, yeah. So if we think about the value for 6G, you have to know the three famous Müller inequations for 6G. And I would like to outline what I actually mean with this. So the first one is better performance is not equal to higher value per se. Right, and I think that's already well understood if I also listen to the presentations here and discussions and so on. So we have certain targets with 5G. A natural way would be to just set the bar even higher, right? A tenfold improvement, latencies below 1 millisecond, not just 5 nines reliability, but 6, 7, 8 nines reliability and so on. But we have to be careful because not everything really is needed and not everything really provides value. So it's not just about doing things as we've always done them and making it even more challenging from the KPI perspective. The next one is higher value is not equal to higher revenue. So that might be a little bit surprising at first, right? So you can say if I have a system that provides higher value, then I should be able somehow to increase the revenue. But the thing is, first of all, we have seen value has different dimensions, right? The economic, societal, environmental. Maybe if we start with economic value, even then it's not really always the case. Because it's not just the value that matters, it's also the cost that matters. So if you can offer me a system that provides 10% higher value, but you ask for 100% additional cost, then maybe it's not such a good deal. So that's why the relation between value and cost is what matters. And it's also not just looking at a single system, it's also about comparing your system, your solution with a benchmark. There are other solutions out there potentially. Right? Of course, there's just one 6G, hopefully, but there might be Wi-Fi, there might be cables, or there might be completely different approaches to solving different problems. So that's why we also have to think about value over cost and compare this to other solutions. And with the non-economic related aspects of value, it's even more challenging, right? So, because at the end of the day, whatever we do, somebody has to pay for it. And how do we deal with societal value then and with the environmental value? I think everybody agrees it's important, but how do we make sure we really get it at the end? So this might require also some regulatory changes and so on. And also this needs to be considered from the very beginning. And then the last one is standardization is not equal to value, not automatically at least, right? What I want to say here is we can standardize a lot, but the value does not come from the standard. At least for most of the stakeholders, the value comes from the real-world deployments, the real-world systems. And this is, of course, where we sometimes have a little bit of a gap between what is in the standard and what is in the real products. There might be still value for the ones writing the standard, right? If you have standard essential patterns, maybe you are happy if it's in the standard, but it's maybe not healthy if we blow up the standard with a lot of IP and so on that is never really implemented. So that's why we should really take care that we do things right, that we standardize things, but also then take the next steps and implement it. So these are the three inequations, and what can we now get out of this? Well, the usual approach now that we all do is we ask ChatGPT and say, ChatGPT, let's solve the inequations for the value, and the summary of the outcome is the last slide, so I took the liberty to prepare 3 slides. It will be quick here. So from my perspective, one of the key promises of 6G is convergence. So in all the vertical industries, we have the digital transformation as the big topic. And this is not new, and this is not triggered by 6G, but this is happening. And 6G has the potential to lead to a convergence of different building blocks that are required for the digital transformation. It's connectivity, it's computing, it's AI, digital twinning. So all these buzzwords that are also around here, if we can integrate this into a single platform, a single system, then this may provide value because it reduces potentially the complexity, it reduces potentially the cost, and if all the different building blocks are part of the same platform, then we don't have to do this integration effort manually. So convergence for me is really one of the key drivers of 6G. Hopefully we have a global standard, and that also is something that may provide value. Not just having the standard, but that I can be sure if I deploy a use case, a system, no matter whether it's in Belgium, in Germany, in China, in Japan, that there is the same system basically. And I know how to use it, and I don't have to adjust my use case and my application so much. So this is important to get the scalability also, especially for vertical applications. Then modularity and openness is key. Also this is something that hopefully provides value, right? So convergence is the one thing that I mentioned, but at the same time, nobody likes vendor lock-in. So it needs to be an open system. There needs to be the possibility that there are different platforms, different systems, and they have to interoperate with each other. So that's why we need open interfaces, open APIs, and also modularity, that we really can tailor solutions according to our needs and just get what we want and what we need and not much more. At the end of the day, it's the value-cost ratio. I mentioned this already. So value is important, but also how much do we ask me to pay for it and what other solutions are out there. And at the end of the day, if you remember the last equation, so that's key here, so that we really should think about, will we implement this at the end and how much effort is it to implement it and so on. And if we are not really sure, then maybe we should focus more on other aspects where we have a clearer picture that it will also be realized in a real-world solution at the end. So that's it from my side, and happy to hand it over to Toon. Yeah.
Thank you, Andreas.
Thank you. Welcome. So my name is Toon Norp. I'm a senior business consultant at TNO, and also I'm working in this Dutch national 6G initiative, Future Network and Services. And that's kind of the basis from what I present this. When I'm thinking about what value will 6G deliver, I'm thinking about digital society. Digital society means that basically everything that we do in our daily lives starts to rely or starts to be 6G enabled. And I think what value you get out of this is very well shown if you think what happens if you do not have 6G. I'm old enough to remember the first G. At the university there, we could actually at the time still listen into the communication. And generally what it was the business person in the car talking with the secretary, where do I need to go next? Well, if that is not working, it's very inconvenient for those few business people, but in general, it was not going to have a big impact. Now, with 5G already, we have digital payments, we have digital ID applications on your phone. Basically, it is a big thing if it's not working. If I'm imagining in 6G it not working, well, if 6G is not working, I cannot do my work. So maybe I go to the pub. That doesn't work either, because I can't pay my drinks, so they will not serve me anything. So then I go home. And, oh, but my car is not going to work, because it's a self-driving car. It's not going to work without 6G. Public transport also doesn't work. So I finally walk home. Fortunately for me, it's only like 10K, so I can walk home. But then I finally get to my front door and I take out my mobile phone to open the lock. And of course, that's not working either. So 6G, through this digital society, will give a huge, big value to the whole society. But that also means that we have to think about other values. We need to make sure that 6G is inclusive, because you cannot have a society where half of the country cannot get digital IDs or cannot get payments because they are in an area that doesn't have enough coverage. Trust. We need to trust 6G. We need to trust that it's secure, that it preserves privacy. We also need to trust that it's always there, as I just shown. The last one is about sovereignty. And I think that is that society, and that's what government definitely wants. You don't want to have to rely on a single company and a single country. You don't want to rely on others. I think there you see sovereignty very much in this connected intelligence. Connected intelligence means that we have a lot of different interconnected intelligent components running in the network. but these components need to talk to each other. So I have my augmented reality glasses. The glasses will outsource some of the compute to the cloud, but that intelligent component will have to talk to maybe a game or a banking application that needs to be shown on those glasses. So you have an interaction between different applications. My augmented reality glasses will have to work everywhere. If we're in Korea or here, it needs to work, and there will be different clouds. So all these clouds and all these applications need to work together. There's one way how you can do that, and that's just say, hyperscalers, big tech, you just do this. So Amazon, Google, they will all have proprietary solutions to have all the applications work together in their cloud. But I cannot imagine that you have a 6G that runs on one single winner-takes-all hyperscaler company. That, to me, is not sovereignty. It's a big monopoly, but also it is a big risk. If one cloud has an outage of 3 or 4 hours, then you have the telecommunications on it not working, but also the electricity networks will be out. And if the electricity networks are out, you cannot get the telecommunication infrastructure back up, and vice versa. So we'll probably have like a multiple-day outage, and that means, in the end, riots on the street, because this all becomes critical services. So what we need, that's the takeaway from here, values. We need to have federated clouds, and we need standardized interfaces to make this value of 6G for digital society come true.
Thank you, Toon.
Next.
Hello, my name is Egon Schulz. I'm from Huawei's Munich Research Center, and I'll share with you my vision about from the vision to the value. And I have to look, yes. Okay, everybody discussed about the vision, but where were the root of the vision? Maybe you know we have in Europe 2 very important associations. One is the Network Europe, which was, the previous name was Network 2020, and then some years before that was Network, and they developed the vision for the next generation. This association has more than 1,000 members worldwide, and they have developed the European ICT vision for the next program. So in September 2018, the network published their vision for the next, it's called Smart Networking, and the contents of next generation internet, in conjunction with the other association, the 5GIA, it's now called 6GIA, and that was the basic for the EU 6G research program with the title Smart Network in the context of NGI. NGI is the abbreviation for next generation internet. And if we have heard the 2 keynote speakers in the morning, then we can say for the next generation, we can say NGI is the abbreviation for the next generation intelligence, because we have heard something about AI will become very important. That will become also the super intelligence. And I'm happy that I'm in the board of the Network Europe and also in the board of 6GIA, and Huawei is an active contributor for this Network IA for the European vision. So now we come to, you know, that we have a vision paper. Based on the vision paper, we developed the EU 6G research program, which is now called SNS, Smart Networking and Services. And in this, we have maybe the exists a result that we can split the 6G in 2 parts. One part is the improvement of the current 5G system, the enhancement of the data rates. Maybe we can go up to data rates. We are thinking about 1 terabit. Then extremely communication. We improved the latency. And we will also improve the reliability. Maybe there are some requirements from the vertical industry, maybe from Mr. Müller. He said we want to have not only some nines at the end, we want to have a very high number of nines for reliability. And then massive connectivity. We will have more and more mobile devices. This means we will have more and more sensors which will deliver data, a lot of data. So this means we need for the data also the high data rate with 1 terabyte. And then we have 2 applications which are going beyond communication. Also, we have heard in the first keynote speak in the morning from Peter Popowski, he mentioned 6G is the road beyond communication. So this means we will have 2 topics which is called sensing and AI. Sensing will produce a lot of data, and you have to process the data, and that you can also use for the prediction of the post-processing for the near future, which is called artificial intelligence. And also we have heard from the keynote speaker of Dr. Tom Wang, he mentioned we will see that will go also in the super intelligence, or what he mentioned is also artificial general intelligence. And now we have a triangle, so the sensing will produce a lot of data that will be feed to bring to the network, and then we have to process by AI. Now we have to think about who will use the operator AI. Is that a killing application? Will every user will have his own AI module, or how much computer power he will spend for AI? Has he the budget to implement AI center? Can he process it in time? Will we have a real-time AI? That is a question which we have to solve in the standardization and also to discuss with the operator, how we want to use AI in conjunction with the whole data. And exists also the possibility that in the future, we will see that some operators will share an AI center, an artificial AI center, because they have to share also the budget, to have some saving. Is that also the beginning of the network sharing for our operator? That is a big question. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Egon. Very well. And I think with this, we have now reached the stage where we can actively engage in debate and discussion. And I guess listening to you all, first of all, there is a picture of value taxonomy. We seem to broadly agree with, at least that's the sense I'm getting. So we have heard some key terms pervasively. Sustainability is one, security and trust, economic value, and how it links into some of the technology enablers like AI. But maybe, Marja, to ask you one of the framing questions here, since I think the work you have laid out of the 6G flagship in Finland has been really defining the stage in many ways, linking into UN SDGs and trying to frame the debate. Can you summarize as to what now is different? Why do we have an opportunity with 6G beyond what we had done before? And I think, Hanne, you made a comment like 5G evolutionary track, but maybe, Marja, starting with you, how do you see this? What is the opportunity now? What's different now?
Great question. I remember that the sustainability thing has always been there. Like when I was a kid, there was the ozone layer problem. There were a lot of problems, always. There have always been problems. And then more than 20 years ago, I attended a training session of environmental sustainability in my previous working place. And I remember thinking that it was only about how do we optimize the operations in the office, like create less waste. But even at that time, we were not talking about how our digital solutions would be solving those challenges. It was only about how we should recycle more. So I think it's finally, now it's the time that the digital technologies, the digitalization sector is really considering the sustainability in two ways, so that how we can help different sectors of society to to solve the sustainability challenges, but at the same time considering how we ourselves continue to be more sustainable with the prediction of growing AI usage, growing data traffic. So there are a lot of things. And as you mentioned, the SDG framework has been a key driver for this global 6G R&D, and the first white paper that the Finnish 6G flagship led.
SDG, Sustainable Development Goals.
Yes, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And the white paper from 2019, the first white paper, that there it was clearly written that the UN SDGs should guide the development. And then we did a follow-up white paper. And the thing I want to say about the SDGs now is that the 17 SDGs, they have their names like about education, health, hunger. But we should go deeper into the actual targets in the framework. Like the SDG level, we shouldn't stay at that SDG level, but really read through, like everybody should read through the SDG framework, read through the 169 targets, because they have indicators. They have 230 indicators. 7 are ICT-specific indicators. There are many indicators, and through those indicators and through those targets, what can we do in this sector to help to contribute? And that was the main conclusion in the white paper 4 years ago.
Yeah, indeed, Marja. And I think what is unique about our sector, it's one of the reasons why I enjoy. I think it's a gift to work for our industry, and especially also research, is the fact that we enable all these other sectors in the spirit of unlocking value in dimensions such as sustainability, tool you mentioned, inclusion, digital society. But Hanne, from an operator angle, how much is Telenor driven by values beyond what Telenor had been driven like 10 years ago? I mean, we have ESG kicking in, of course. That's almost like financial strategic context, environmental, social governance. But coming back to our value taxonomy, how do you see it from operator angle? Is it still economics first, financial performance first, or do you see a strong motivation beyond financials?
Well, yeah, there is strong motivation beyond financials, and it has been for a long time already.
Yes.
But of course, you know, we are part of the stream where we put a lot more effort into sustainability when it comes to power consumptions and well, climate, of course, and also societal sustainability. We, as operators, we have a long history of contributing to well, our mission is empowering society in Telenor, and we think that through our operations we have actually brought communication, we have brought internet to people out in the outskirts of many countries for a long time. And we have seen that this is a part of inclusion, of education, of industry development in these countries, of course. And we are proud of that. But I think what we see now is a much tougher pressure on us all to dig deeper into this. It's a big responsibility, and it's very. I just want to add that I think it's also very political. And you had a session earlier today on use cases, and we were discussing the different continents. And we are part of Europe, and we want this for Europe, right? And we should also have that in mind. Not only the UN SDGs.
Yeah, indeed. Excellent. So then I guess following on the use case discussion, now Toon, you work for like a national initiative. Do you see like a hierarchy of the value debate, or do we broadly share like European, worldwide, and maybe Egon, you can comment even from a Chinese company perspective. Is there a shared view, like from a Dutch perspective? Do you see specifics that are particularly relevant for Dutch? Like, I don't know, flood mitigation in conjunction with 6G. Maybe it's the wrong example, but...
Well, I think that there is at least a lot more interest now from the Dutch government on 6G. I remember when we started with 5G research, and I went to the Dutch government, it's like any money from Dutch government on stimulating research, there was zero money. And now we have something like 215 million euros for this FNS program. even more so when I started with, like, oh, 6G is coming, I got a question from the Dutch Crisis Agency, and they wanted to know, what is 6G going to mean for us about, because we are responsible for society, what is it going to mean? They had all these things like the COVID crisis, they had Ever Given. Is there any kind of risk? So I think that this sovereignty that I was talking about is something that's really close to heart to Dutch government, and I think also to European governments, that they want to make sure that they are in control of their future in 6G. They want to make sure that there's not like some kind of risk, like the Ever Given that's blocking the Suez Canal, and then we have a problem with European economy because we don't have chipsets. That's something that I see specific. I'm also doing standardization. Not everybody is equally enthusiastic about key values and specifically key value indicators to use that into standardization. I think everybody agrees that key values are more important, that 6G is becoming way more important for the whole society, so you need to think about these things. It's not about highest data rate only, but to say that we want to have this key value mechanism and the key value indicators, I think we need to do some convincing, at least in 3GPP, that this is really the framework to use.
Excellent. And maybe coming back to Andreas, the famous inequations you presented here. The obvious key question is, so is there also equations? Like, how would you define? Is there a positive set of equations you could also come up with? I mean, implicitly you could say they are part of the equation, but to ask the obvious from industry angle, are we on the right track to unleash value from the next generation of mobile networks? I mean, that's the key question at hand. Is this committee broadly research? Are we working on the right technology enablers so as to live up to that value expectation? I guess that's the other discussion we need to have. And then we can discuss, Egon, in just a minute, how technology helps and do we do the right choices? But first question to you, Andreas, along these lines.
Well, I'm pretty sure you could also come up with some equations, but maybe that requires some additional work, right? And the equation should not be understood in the sense that there's nothing in it. Of course, a higher performance can lead to higher value, but it's not automatically like this.
Absolutely.
So this is what I wanted to say, right? It's not an automatism that I have higher performance or that I have higher value and I get higher value or higher revenue. I think from my personal perception, I mean, as Bosch, we started really looking into mobile communications with 5G, basically. And I cannot remember that we had similar discussions at the very early days of 5G. Of course, we were discussing about use cases and the big picture and so on. But now, KVIs is a new concept that came up with Hexa-X, right? And we have talking about sustainability and so on. And that's, of course, a difference. And I think it's very important that we continue this and have even more discussions and considerations like this. And maybe not everything in the plenary like here, right? So sometimes, if you know where the value is, maybe you don't want to reveal it to everybody, at least the economic values. But that's why we need still a close collaboration, close discussions between, for example, vertical players and also ICT players to really get to a common understanding. And this is then helpful for everybody, right? So then we have maybe the expectations right. So this was also one of the challenges with 5G. We had very high expectations and then also a little bit disappointment afterwards because not everything was available from day one. And having this good understanding what makes sense and what not is a good way to reduce the risk that we do it or run into the same situation again. But looking at the things that are being discussed, I would say there is a lot of potential for additional value, right? And also Egon mentioned this again, sensing, for example, is very interesting because especially in verticals, be it a factory or be it a mobility scenario with a car and so on, I mean, there is a lot of sensing happening already today, but it's separate systems and separate solutions. And if we can integrate this, the solution can become better potentially, and maybe it also helps us even with sustainability, right? Because we don't have to deploy different devices, different systems. It's basically a single system. It requires maybe less resources to produce it, to manage it, and so on. So this can come up with several benefits. So that's why sensing, AI certainly is a big topic. And also the things that I mentioned before, like digital twins and integration of computing and so. Yeah. So a lot of promises, but we really have to go into the details and understand very well what is the value, how can we unlock it, what is the business model behind it, and so on. And we can, of course, work with scenarios. That's always a good idea if you don't know the exact future, right? But we should do this exercise. It helps everybody at the end.
Yeah, indeed. I guess so it starts with ambition in terms of value, but then it ties into technology elements and architecture and the associated choice. So that's Egon. Now, the question I have to you, I think we are making reasonably good progress when I look at 3GPP, and you mentioned some of the industry fora that also your company is a part of, leading vendors, academia, industry. But the question I have for you is, are we 100% on the same page as regards to the value drivers? I mentioned this ambition to keep helping the world act together, creating technology to help the world act together. Is there something at risk? Do you see a risk that we might even disagree on some of the values in going forward? Or do you see elements to support the view that we will be able, I mean, standards, you had it on a slide. There is value in global standards, I would argue. But what's your perspective? How big is the risk that we endanger some of this in a global context in going forward?
So it means you risk for the global standard.
That's a specific part of this, but yes, it goes beyond standardization. I mean, obviously we see differences in political system and societal environment, and it's not a discussion of good and bad. It's just different. Let me be clear, right? And you look at surveillance, for instance, as one of the topics. Where you could use 6G technology, and it's an open question. Do we stay on the same page, or is there a risk that, and this will go beyond standards, then linking into overall value set?
Yes, so maybe you have seen that we have a lot of, maybe we have the vision also during these days. We saw that a lot of people working on to make some higher data, to make sensing and to AI. And I see no problems for the global standardization, because if the next generation will become a success, then we need the mass market. That is clear. And for the time being, I see that some countries make some small changing, like India. They are doing some new modulation scheme, but that is not the problem. And I see, in order to make the whole system, the whole telecommunication successful, we need the global market, and I see no problem to go the common way, because we will, from Huawei point of view, we will also give our ideas to the European Commission and to work together. That I see it. And if I'm looking to the features which I presented here for the enhancement, I see also no physical limits that we can fulfill this, because maybe also Morse law is valid for the timing. There's also said maybe 10 years ago we will not fulfill Morse laws in the future, but the engineers, they will have every time new ideas and they will continue. And I think all engineers will be happy if we have a global standard in order to push the next generation. And now it's very important, what will happen with AI? Maybe AI is now a future which is beyond communication, and that could be a killer application for the operator, maybe, that we can sell AI module for each user. And the operator which has the best AI module, he can make a lot of money. So this means the things which is beyond communication is maybe, I want to say, the game changer, and they can make specified which operator is best. But on the other side, you have also spent a lot of money, because the NVIDIA chipset it's not cheap, and you have to buy it. And if one operator has no AI features, will he survive? That is also, I think, a paradigm changing, which also Tongmen mentioned in the morning, that we will see with AI and also with the sensing, with the post-processing of data. That is a game changing. And maybe that is how many operators will survive with AI modules, with the best AI modules.
So I guess reflection on standardization, probably most of us would agree. I personally agree. There is value in global standard. Right, economy of scale and interoperability, no doubt about that. I think the implicit next question, building on what you just said, of course, is where do we need standards and where not? And I think, Toon, you reflected on the power of compute using that formulation. And then, of course, the question is how out of Europe and out of research and in conjunction with 6G research as we now move forward. And we heard the UNEX keynote speaker yesterday. Is there new approaches that could help us come up with good ideas for the next cycle, actually, 6G era technology, to maybe tackle opportunity, living up to the values as we have, including energy efficiency and beyond? Any view on that, Toon? Would that make sense? Orchestration as a key theme across platform, multi-tenant, digital twin. Also in Holland.
I think all this needs to be, all this stuff needs standardization to make it possible to have different kinds of providers of edge and cloud. And basically I'm also working for standardization. KPN, they want to have a multi-cloud strategy. So you can use hyperscalers, you can use other cloud providers that are local, and you can have your own cloud. And all that needs to work together. I think that can only work with standardization. The problem a little bit is, to what extent do you do this in 3GPP? Because mobility is also part of this. So maybe there's a mobile standard. But you also see the cloud world. There's in Europe, there's this IPSI-SYS, people that are working on cloud architectures, and they're looking at federation. They want to have a federated cloud. But that's not the world of 3GPP. So where is what going to be standardized? That's an interesting question. We said know what goes where. But for sure, something needs to be standardized. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Yeah, very well. I think the one area, before we also open up the floor to questions from the audience, the one area we haven't really touched upon yet, and probably I would start with you, Marja, on that question, is like value paradigm, value taxonomy, and regulation, the role of government. Any quick comments? You had it on one of your slides, which I think was great. So,
well, one thing we clearly see is the involvement of the ministries in these discussions from the very beginning, way more than in 5G, or a lot more than in 4G. And countries have positions on like promoting certain agendas already now. We see that in the global discussions. So it's much like the governments are now much more involved in this technology.
Yeah, indeed. And one last question, Hanne, I need to ask you this, because we at Nokia, we make huge effort, but it's a struggle. It's like we try to impose some of the objectives we believe in, values, like sustainability in particular, upstream and downstream, right? Like with our suppliers and the customers we serve. Now, Telenor is easy. I think we're probably on the same page. But still, how tough is it to enforce some of the paradigms that you personally and the company believes in, anchored also in cutting-edge research, with the customers you serve? Like consumer and enterprise alike, is that a natural case, or is it a challenge?
With the customers?
Yes. So, I mean, energy efficiency probably is natural. I mean, everybody loves to save money on energy. So, but in general, how do you see it?
How tough it is on the consumers. I expected that you would ask how tough it is with the suppliers.
You can also answer this. So.
Yeah. No, I don't think I have an answer to that. If it's tough with the customers, I think with the suppliers, we have to use our purchasing power to get them on board with our sustainability objectives, and we do that for sure. But of course, this has to be reflected with the customer as well. But I mean, it is so the business models that we have currently for subscriptions is within limits. You can eat all you want of data resources, and then you have subscriptions which is you can eat all you want, right? And so we don't actually have any mechanisms for controlling or steering that. But that's not only us; it's all the operators. So
I know, that's why I'm asking.
Yes, exactly. So I mean, and as an economist, we often use price right? To get some effects that we want, for instance, decreased use of data, which uses power, right, energy. So, but that we couldn't do alone, I guess. This we have to evolve together with them.
Yeah, indeed. It's almost a tough, an unfair question. Almost. On the other hand, it ties into society, right? It ties into what matters. I mean, you serve customers that are part of society.
Value. I mean,
Toon, you wanted to comment.
Yeah. So how much is traffic worth, right? When it's a health application, it's an industry application, or when it's advertising or a picture of a cat.
Yes.
So this is something we need to discuss.
And this is something from a technology angle we can make happen, as you well know, right? That's, I mean, technology-wise, enabling-wise, even with 5G, we are increasingly ready to make this happen.
Yep.
Toon, you wanted to comment.
Yeah. If you look at sustainability or environmental sustainability or energy use, carbon emissions, what we're trying to do, and we have this European project Exigence that we're involved in, is to make visible along the service chain how much you're using on energy. And that means that you can, on the one hand, you can, in the end, charge, have data called detail records, not just on how much money this cost, but also how much carbon emissions did you create last month with your downloading of the video of the cat. And even nicer would be that you can have it even on your phone, with an indicator. And this is the model that is used with a lot of different things. If you buy a fridge or a washing machine, all of that comes with these stickers saying A++, or if you buy a house in the Netherlands now, you cannot sell a house anymore if you don't have an energy label. How energy friendly is your house? Yeah. That you can also do with mobile telecommunications. And then I think it's not so much that we have to drive the consumers to say that they need to be, they will ask us to be more energy efficient, because they'll see, hey, this video is very brown or gray, whereas this video is much more green. I want to have more green videos. I want to be more energy efficient in what I'm using mobile telecommunication for.
Which then, of course, links into actually a big debate. We had it in one of the workshops on sustainability, namely how do you measure the impact. Energy can be measured. When it comes to softer factors of value, it's more demanding. But I think a lot of effort goes into this, rightfully. So metrics and decreed performance, so we avoid scenarios of greenwashing. I guess that's part of what we discuss here as well. Egon.
I want to give some remarks about regulation.
Yes, please.
My point is now we have AI, and I'm very happy that the European countries or the European Commission is the front runner for AI regulation. So this means in this topic we are not fast follower, we are in the front. Now everybody which will sell AI in Europe, he must to follow these laws. And that is very good that we have started this from the beginning and we have the overview to do it. That's one point. The other topic is for sensing, we have no regulation. We have only regulation for communication. So this means there is a gap to fulfill this and to push the regulators, like in Germany, we have the BNetzA or Ofcom in UK, to make to a common manner how they want to regulate sensing, because these sensing data, it's not a camera, it's not a picture, but also they're very sensitive. You can recognize who is there, so this means, but you cannot see the color of the eyes, but you can see a lot of biological methods.
Indeed.
So we have also to do the sensing, so, and I'm happy that we have this, so everybody has to follow the US, the Asia company, and also others. If they want to provide AI, they have to follow the AI laws in Europe. That is a good message, I think.
Yeah, I think here I'd like to have your perspective, Andreas. So is this I mean, I agree. Bundesnetzagentur, it's a nightmare in a way because we haven't really defined it yet when it comes to sensing in a broader context. Can Telenor use their license for sensing purposes? What is the situation now when you go to Stuttgart and into the? It's no longer labs. It's actually 5G in action in some places. Is that an issue? Positioning, applications, sensing. Also, we have some early prototypes. Is it holding you back at this time, Andreas, in industry, vertical or not?
Well, if you look at the 6G technologies, I would say it's not holding us back yet because we are still in the POC stage, right? And of course, it's much easier to set up a POC than to deploy a system at scale. But I fully agree, right? I mean, regulation in general will become even much more important than in the past. In the past, it was primarily spectrum regulation, assigning the spectrum and having some restrictions. And especially if we have this vision of a platform, I mentioned convergence, right, as a key topic, with much more than just connectivity, then we also need much more than just spectrum regulation. But even spectrum, here I agree with Egon, even though it's not my major, so to say. But if you look at sensing, right, so currently we have spectrum for mobile communications, it's an IMT allocation. And IMT means communications. If you now do sensing in the same band, to what extent can we do that? I'm not sure if it's really clear, right? So, of course, I would say if the majority is still communication, it still might be fine, but can I use then a system just for sensing only, for example? To me, not clear, and maybe something that we have to think about. And then it was what Egon indicated, right? Of course, the sensing is not a camera. In Europe, it's very hard to take a picture of somebody else, right? We always need these written permissions, and it's a lot of effort, but it also has, of course, a good reason behind it, and it's somehow I'm also happy that not everybody can take pictures and do whatever they want with it. Now, sensing is not camera, as I said, but still you might be able to track people, right, and to create some profiles and so on. So it's still very much privacy related. So that's why we need regulation here to protect the privacy of people, and we have to find a good trade-off, a good balance of interests, because there are certainly valid benefits also for society maybe, right, to sense what is happening, to see the traffic situation, to detect accidents and things like this. But there are also then these challenges on the personal level especially. And for me, it's not clear yet what this will look like. And I think also here it's important that there is this dialogue with the regulators from the very beginning, because otherwise we have a cool technology, can sense very well, can have AI as a service, but maybe regulation does not allow us to use it. And then again, we have not really created value, then we have created a good system, but we cannot use it for other reasons. Yeah.
Or some regions can use it, some cannot. I mean, what I've heard from some of our friends, and I can openly say this, in the United States, is you are, in Europe, you are the champions of regulation. And it's good, right? We have values and we regulate, but let's make sure we are also champions. We stay on that track with 6G. I mean, that's the ambition we have, including the AI pervasive element of 6G. But Marja, you wanted...
Yes. In my slide, I had these topics, and one of them was regulation. So it's important to take into account in all the studies. And I have one nice example from the past, in the 4G era. The cognitive radio systems 15 years ago, they were studied very heavily in the research community, also in the industrial community. And then it was a topic that how should these be regulated? What is even a cognitive radio? And then we studied that at the ITU. I was chairing the group on cognitive radio systems at the time, and we made the definition for it, and also then eventually concluded that a radio system using cognitive radio techniques, it should still follow the radio regulations. And it becomes kind of obvious that that's how it should be, but it was a shock to the research community because the researchers did not believe that there is some regulations that is binding the spectrum use. So a lot of the work that was done did not care at all about the regulations, and that I think it was a huge loss, because if we had really just went through the regulation and seen what is allowed and what is not, and then what should be changed to make it possible, we would have gained a lot more than we actually did in that cognitive radio research time.
Yeah, indeed. Well, thank you for this. Probably is a good moment to now open up the floor for questions, if there is. I know we have many distinguished experts in the room, so please feel free to speak up and engage.
Good to see.
Well, if not, we keep going. There's one. Please, Tommy.
Tom Svensson Chalmers. Volker, you trigger me. I should ask a question, so I do.
Yeah, well.
I'm triggered especially on the slide by Andreas Müller on value, and I see you using value and different of those equations, and I'm a little bit questionable if it's the value is the same word on those places. In particular, value for whom, and in particular, when we talk about societal values, who will pay? Especially when we have future generations, or we have non-human-centered values. At least of today, we regard maybe some ecological values not being central for the humans today, but maybe in the future. How do we model this? How do we create business and revenue chains so we do it?
Maybe I can start since you mentioned my slides. And of course, this is somehow a little bit provocative, right, and was very simplified. And it really depends on what kind of value you look at, right? And Volker has shown this in this slide at the beginning. There's the economic perspective, societal, environmental, and even for economic perspective, you maybe can distinguish between the value for the provider of a solution and the user of a solution, right? This might be different values. For especially the societal, environmental aspects, I think it's even more challenging because this is somehow new, right? So we are used to classical business, and if we have a good solution, we want to sell it, and this is how it works. But now taking this into account is a new dimension. And I briefly mentioned it before, so I think also here regulation might be one part of the solution at least, right? So I think we all agree sustainability is important, we want to work on this and so on. I'm not sure if Telenor then sees the bill and says, here, the solution without sustainability, whatever it means, right, costs this, and with sustainability costs this. So if the difference is very high, then of course you also would have to think about, okay, how much can I charge on top from my current customers and so on. So regulation may help then to somehow have the same conditions for all the market participants, right? So then nobody has to be the front runner and take all the risks, so to say. But I think we could also think about new business models along the lines of what Toon has mentioned, right? I mean, making transparent maybe the sustainability footprint is one thing, but maybe we can even have new charging models, right? So that we don't pay for the data rate, maybe we pay for the CO2 consumption. Or we have even a green mobile contract where I'm sure, so I don't consume any carbon dioxide with what I do here. So, but this is still, I think an open field, right, with different options, but a very valid point, so, and we have to think about this.
Yeah, I liked your slides as well. So, but just to turn it around, because what I say is that well, first we have to find out if there is a problem to be solved and if solving it actually creates value for someone, right? And so I would say that if it creates value for someone, then then we find a solution to it. But it doesn't have to be higher performance or increased or lower latency or something. But if we can solve it, then there is. Then there is value created, and someone probably will pay. And then comes the question: then who will pay? Because those that extract value from something perhaps are not those who are going to pay. And then we are into the regulatory field. Perhaps we have to have some mechanisms that see to that someone can extract value from it, but others have to pay. So there have to be some new business models. So this is what we have to solve in this new context of then 6G and sustainability to a much larger degree than we have done before.
Mm-hmm. And all that is circular. All that becomes very circular, so that we reduce the amount of extra that we need, so that we keep everything in the circular. And many other fields are very advanced in those principles.
Yes, indeed.
Another comment also, because we're talking about regulations, and we don't want to be regulated, right? But of course, operators are regulated because we have to have a fair competition, right? But we should also, in our industry, also talk about self-regulation and how our industry associations actually can regulate ourselves. That should be on the agenda as well.
Yeah, this I think, Hanne, is a very important point in terms of, it also affects standards. We discussed standards earlier, right? Can you drive standards top down from some commission? Probably not a good idea. It's a debate, right? But maybe there's other questions from the audience. If not, okay, there's one.
Thank you. Peter Popowski, Aalborg University in Denmark. So currently, I'm a bit confused about how these values are turned into technology. Because currently, for example, on my phone, and I guess on all your phones, the modem is produced outside of Europe. The software is designed outside of Europe, operating system. The things that is designed in Europe is to accept cookies, right? Which is kind of protecting your privacy. And, but this has nothing to do with the mobile standardization. It has nothing to do with the preamble design and protocol. It's something done regulatory at a high level, and it's supposedly giving the value of privacy. So how do we take this value, let's say, of privacy or other values, how do we propagate them to the technical solutions that are, going to give de facto technological sovereignty? Because currently, things are not looking very well for technological sovereignty.
Yeah, you want to start, Toon, please?
Not everything is done in standards, and not everything is developed in Europe. But if you look at standardization, there's a lot of different things that do have impact on the values that we're talking about. If you, in the standard, talk about developing a radio interface that has an impact on the energy consumption, which frequency bands are you going to be using, has an impact on energy consumption, privacy, and security and resilience, maybe not a radio interface, and maybe not a mobile phone, but definitely the network aspects, the 3GPP SA service architecture aspects, they have an impact on privacy and resilience. I remember that in 4G we started to have all the base stations multi-homed, and that you could reroute. That meant that the network became much more resilient. And those kind of values are provided through better standards.
Yeah, and I guess it really starts, how do you made such a statement just a moment ago, and I think it's exactly right. It starts with relevant problems to be solved. And then at the same time, you look at technology enablers. And so you have societal pull, technology push, and we provide options out of research to hopefully help tackle the right problems. That is what is happening at this time. We have come, by the way, some way. When you look at energy efficiency, I can clearly tell you, by the way, there is tremendous research and design effort out of Europe in this industry for 5G and now 6G coming up. It's become a key, energy efficiency has become a key criterion of design. When you look at digital inclusion, the fact that we are now committed, actually the journey is on, right? Release 17, NTN, non-terrestrial. That's a key building block, enabler to do what? To include the unconnected, to include business opportunity, now to link this into the business side that go beyond what we do. And I like the discussion for the economic value as well. By the way, the one thing we haven't been quoting yet, that's also very relevant, there is very clear correlation. 4G and 5G, 6G, we haven't seen the data yet, but predictively, I'm sure it'll happen. Clear correlation, GDP growth and connectivity. Or the other way around. I've had a previous life with World Bank looking at some of the countries who are not, they're emerging, right? The challenge has consistently been, the enabling quality of networks and connectivity is missing, right? So so now is the opportunity. to tackle this. By the way, that's a whole debate in its own right. How can we connect the unconnected from affordability angle? But maybe this is a challenge. Why? Because maybe, Marja, you have a comment. Probably it's more device-related than network-related. The devices are very expensive for someone in rural Africa.
Yes.
But maybe you have a comment. Yeah?
Yes, like many problems are not technical.
Yes.
They are related to the financial aspect of it or just educational aspect of it.
Yes.
So connecting the unconnected has many layers. You have to have the infrastructure, but that's not enough if people cannot connect, if they cannot afford to buy the devices. So that definitely is one part. And back to that question, I think it's, like you mentioned, these key challenges, key drivers, they do go down to the technical development level, especially the energy efficiency is a great example now that we've talked about it so much now that it cannot be avoided in the technology design. It just has to be there. And the same applies to other things, including this digital divide, that now we have to really offer solutions for that because it's discussed so much, even in the ITU framework recommendation. It's there, and administrations from many countries wanted it there. Then it's the industry's job to really deliver what they're asked to deliver.
Can I also comment on
of course,
sensing?
Please.
Well, you mentioned privacy. Why is that relevant? But when you have a concept like sensing, right, and we don't know really what that is yet, but if we do understand that this is about sensing the environment in public spaces or in private spaces, and that actually humans will be observed in these public spaces, then we have to discuss privacy, because without actually giving your accept to it, you will actually be monitored, right? And so that we have to discuss this aspect. It's extremely important that we do. But we don't have the solutions to it because we don't even know what sensing is. So yeah,
I think out of research we have some cool ideas, and as of course out of Telenor research, I'm sure some of these are shared efforts. So what is great with 6G research effort is that we at Nokia for sure, and many of like-minded companies, we clearly said privacy, security is a key area of research. Right, and then of course you can now dive deeper, like what are the elements that we're looking at. Ultimately, sure, it's about zero trust, omnipresent monitoring kind of approach, yes, but then you have all kind of alternative ways of encrypting, multi-party compute, anonymizing data. That's particularly relevant when we look at device edge. So I think this is relevant. Now we are going, I think, to one of the areas we haven't discussed a lot yet, which is indeed, because this is a research technology-centric conference, how does all this relate into the actual technology options that we come up with? And I think our ambition needs to be to come up with options, right? And then let society decide. And that, of course, links then into one of the key challenges. And that's a question I wanted to ask for a long time, namely, I've heard this from regulators, by the way, asking industry for support in this regard, namely, how can we make sure societal acceptance is there? Right, we see it with 5G. I'm not sure, some of you may be aware in Berlin, we've had folks run around with metal hats to protect themselves against radiation. It's not a joke, it's real. So any ideas on that part? Andreas?
Transparency. So I think it's important, right, to not lock the doors and do the research until 2028, and then we say, hey, now we have a cool new standard, and by the way, it can sense you, it can track you, and so on. So then people will not like it, or some people will not like it, right? And as you say, I mean, we have seen it with 5G, with the heads. I mean, at least in Germany, it was a big topic. And this was without sensing and all this AI stuff and so on, right? So it was still the easy one, I would say. So I'm really convinced there will be major concerns. Whether they are justified or not, the concerns will be there, and we have to address them in a certain way. Otherwise, there will be resistance, and also this may lead to a situation where it will fail at the end. Yeah, and I think the best thing is to be transparent, to really inform the general public, whatever that means, right? So that what we are working on to to also educate people a little bit, right, and say, hey, yeah, it's sensing, but we have these and these ways to deal with it, to ensure your privacy, to establish also trust in the technology, right? And the sooner we start with this, the better, because also the sooner we understand what the real concerns are. Yeah, so that's why I think really having a dialogue and so on is key, and I think also on the European level, that's really could be a joint effort, right? Because this will, in one way or the other, be relevant in all the countries. Yeah.
Marja, please.
Yes, and we as the community always say how important this mobile communication is for the society and for the different stakeholders. But I'm in the academic domain and I see a lot of research that's being done in different disciplines. And I dare to say that for us, mobile communication is very important, but it's not very important for many other fields of science. And I think we should make this is the case study for many. This could be the case study for many, many disciplines. Mobile communications, 5G, 6G, and they could look at this using their tools, using those theoretical and methodological approaches that they use in the different disciplines. And I think we should now welcome more researchers from different disciplines to look at our sector, look at our developments. And I think this also helps to this societal acceptance.
I mean, on this topic, Marja, I think you see this question coming. It's so I agree, multidisciplinary involvement. Yes, but at the same time, why is it that we have, at least in some of the European countries, decreasing level of interest from the next generation? I mean, what's going wrong? I mean, we discuss all the relevant topics, climate change included, demographics included, digital inclusion of the elderly, so forth. So how do we tackle that? Is that part of a value debate? Should it be? The lack of talent coming up?
Well, it has become a commodity, what we are delivering, right? The connectivity for your smartphone, that's a commodity. Yeah. Even though actually people pay a lot, if you think about it, each month. But it's a commodity, so it just has to be there. So. Yeah, I don't know. I was hoping, when starting with the 5G, I was hoping that many of the use cases within health, within industry, all those that we're still foreseeing, and I am quite sure that they will emerge, and then we will get renewed interest in this, because it will affect our society to such a degree.
Yeah, we got a job to do.
Yeah, with AI and all those other aspects as well.
Yeah, indeed. So we come to the last 5 minutes of the session, and probably this is the time to ask a last question, final statement from each of you. And the key question I want to ask you all to wrap this up, of course, is what is the one key factor of success, the one key value even, that you think is the one that deserves the most focus as we now get closer to defining release 21, 6G foundational release? I mean, for me, actually, I can share this right up front, it's the way we collaborate. I think that is probably key also as we go forward. But please, your views. Maybe we go from left to right this time. Egon, what?
Yes, so maybe from my point of view, that we will see really the peak data rate, 1 terabit in the future, so that the people have the impression, so that the society will have a new value that is high data rate, because some people are not happy with very slow downloading. That is my impression, and that we will start with the AI module, and I will see what is the differentiation between operators if they can provide AI modules for the users.
Okay, so that's user experience, focusing on AI and data rate.
Yes, and data, that's a two topics.
Toon.
For me, I think the key thing to organize in 6G is this interoperability, interconnect. Because we have this European use cases, 6 in total. If you look at them, all of them need to be working together, multiple use cases at the same time. You have a digital twin, but the digital twin gets the data from the physical awareness sensing, and then you have the digital twin. You're going to use that with immersive multimedia. So it is all connected. And if this connection doesn't work, then we really don't have 6G, or we don't have this digital society where all these things need to work together.
Indeed, yes. Andreas?
Yeah, of course, it's a hard question, but I think it's about continuing what we have done today, right? So really developing a very good and deep understanding of the value that we want to create, and this requires a very good and deep understanding of the problems we want to solve. If you start a startup, right, its technology is maybe not the most challenging thing typically. It's more really understanding the customer and having the right customer segment and so on. So I think much more needs to be done here, working with scenarios maybe, rating them and so on. And of course, not everything will be done in the public. And the basis for this is a close collaboration, right? That we should continue, especially also between the verticals and the ICT industry. I mean, consumer is also important, but I think there it's established business, it's the next generation, and still in the vertical industries, there's still a lot of untapped potential that we hopefully can unlock in the next coming years. Yeah.
Yes.
I have a few to pick from, but let me build on what Toon says, and also you said that this modularity and openness is important. And I'll say that because of economic sustainability, because for innovation, it is critical that we enable variety. Right, the possibility for variety, because if we don't do that, I mean, innovation is selection from a lot of variations. So if you don't enable that, the industry and market will dry out. So in order to just be a better world, we have to have that.
Mm-hmm. For me, describing it one word is honesty. So we have to be honest with what this new generation of mobile communications offers to the users. If they're like end users, customers, consumers, they don't know the wireless propagation things. They don't know that the data rates actually can fluctuate a lot. A lot of people, when I talk to people and I say that I'm in the mobile communication, and they ask me a lot of questions about it. And it often goes down to this data rate. Data rate, what do I get with my phone? And why don't I have connectivity here? And why is that? It's at that level, really at the consumer discussions. They're still talking about that. And now we have to, we should not overpromise. We should be very, very honest and transparent in terms of what we promise, what this new technology really promises.
I like that. Be honest, deliver. With this, thank you very much, distinguished speakers and panelists. Great hand of applause, and thank you, everybody coming and listening in. Thank you so much.